Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flix Show. My name is Chris Wong. This is a very special Let's Talk with a fellow fan in the film industry. And his name is Michaela. I met him over at the SnyderCon, and I'll probably have his picture on the thumbnail. But I thought we chatted for a bit, and come find out he actually has a lot of great opinions and knows a little bit about the film industry. So I thought because Zack Snyder's Justice League is coming out in 2021, and there's a lot of things that possibly could have happened to get to this point, and what it could actually mean for directors later on. But before I get into that, go ahead and introduce yourself and whatever you have to say about that, or how did you feel that after the whole SnyderCon, after wondering if the movie was going to come out? How do you feel now? Is essentially the day after tomorrow.
Well, to be honest with you, the way I felt, it was sense of relief was definitely there. But for me, I've always been more so a DC fan, and on top of that, I've loved Zack Snyder's movies. 300, Man of Steel, the Owl movie. Just going back, Sucker Punch. I've always been a fan of his style. And so hearing about the news of the 2021 release, it was more so I felt the excitement of, wow, we're going to get another DC movie and we're going to get another Zack Snyder movie. And it was just more so of just the excitement of just getting more content from a favorite director and also from a favorite property of mine. I was just really ecstatic when it came to that point. So, and also happy for the fans and their victory, and happy for Zack as well. So.
Oh, definitely. How did you get to the SnyderCon? I know you kind of mentioned you've always been a Zack Snyder fan.
Yeah. So I forgot how it was released.
It was on Vero, I think.
On Vero, and then some that got onto Twitter, obviously Google and whatnot. But yeah, being a Zack Snyder fan, eventually I heard about it, and then I remember I was on my lunch break or something like that, and I called my girlfriend, and she's always been super supportive of my love for Zack and movies, all things movies and whatnot, and my profession. And I called her and I was like, hey, like there's this event coming up, and she right away without like hesitation was like, we have to go, like we're going to this. And wow. She was home at the time, so she actually went on to the site and purchased the tickets. And then she asked me, well, do you want to go to the whole thing, or do you just want to go to the Batman versus Superman one? Initially, we were thinking about maybe going to the whole thing, but we also had some other plans that weekend. So we're like, most important one for me, again, like I said, being a DC fan, we chose to go to Batman versus Superman screening. So that's how I heard about it.
That's cool. So she's so supportive of that.
Yeah. She was like right away, let's go. So
I know I had to tell my wife, I was like, you don't have no choice in the matter. I just bought tickets. You're coming with me.
You flew from all the way from Hawaii. So
from Hawaii, yeah.
Yeah. So definitely if I was still living in Hawaii, which I think I told you before, I lived in Hawaii for like 9 years. If I was still in Hawaii, I'm not sure if we would have got to that conversation where I could have been like, oh, we're for sure going, but I definitely would have wanted to go. So that's really cool that you made the trip out. So
yeah, I mean, it was like, hey, once in a lifetime, you might as well do it. Then you get to meet Zack Snyder. You may say something there. I don't know.
Exactly, and especially with all that Snyder Cut stuff being prevalent back then, like that was also the other side of my interest too. I wanted to go there and see if anything was going to be shown, said possibly, and.
Right.
So yeah.
Did you always know that there was a Snyder Cut, or did you kind of like the rest of us? We kind of watched the theatrical, came out, and like, well, there's something.
Yeah. Well, for me, yes and no. I didn't always know that there was a Snyder Cut per se, or whatever you want to call it. And I think the label of it has kind of confused some people too, but I've always known that in the industry, especially for directors, there are creative rights that are protected by their guild, that allow for the execution and the creation of their director's cut. and they're given certain rules and timelines and like I said, opportunity to make their director's cut. So I didn't know if it actually existed, but I knew that him being a film director, that he was given these rights, and these rights are heavily protected, and so the possibility of it was there for me to believe it. And it's also just kind of looking at like the timeline, and when he left the production, it was after principal photography was done, this is all public information, and directors are given 10 weeks after a editor's assembly cut is finished, right? They're given up to 10 weeks to complete their director's cut. And so you just look at the timeline, and you just look at the different sequence of events. You can logically make the assumption that, hey, what rights are given to him as movie director, and the timeline. So, and when he stepped away. So given that time frame, I knew that he had the opportunity to make one. So.
Oh, that's yeah. So I mean, and this, what he's referring to is, there's actually, if you go to the Director Guilds of America, there's actually written on public. You can actually go there yourself and search for it and look at that. What I always was interested in was when he kept saying that he has not seen it, he has not watched it, and to me, I'm feeling like, well, he's kind of saying he doesn't approve it. Right, in that sense, like if down to the basic level of understanding is like, well, I haven't seen it, so how did I approve that? That's
and
mine,
you're referring to the theatrical cut.
Yes, the theatrical cut. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it was a sad sequence of events for him and his family. It's very unique in its sense when you look at it in the scope of how movies are made, how film is made. Again, very unfortunate, but it's a known fact. And again, you can go into the bylaws, you can go into the basic agreement, into the contracts, which is negotiated upon between in this case, the DGA, and then what you have is the AMPTP, which is the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. So that group, the so I always forget that, I always screw it up, but the AMPTP, they're the leading negotiator for the entertainment industry. They're the ones that come to the table and represent the entertainment industry in terms of negotiating the collective bargaining agreement, and they negotiate with the guild. So in this case, with the DGA, and within that negotiated contract, and it's negotiated every 3 years, it's updated, negotiated every 3 years. In that contract or that basic agreement, it's very clear what is allotted to you after you're done with principal photography. What is allotted to you with the time given that you're given to complete your director's cut, and then what happens during post-production, and you as a film director, what are your rights during the post-production? And for a lot of directors during post-production, the basic agreement allows them they have to be told the place, time, and date when any post-production work is being done to their movie, and they're given the right to be present and to consult on the movie itself, right? And then given the unique and unfortunate circumstances or events that happen to his family, and him having to step away from the movie, he wasn't present. He wasn't allowed to be present, or maybe he didn't want to be present during that period of post-production. So ultimately, you can make the assumption that he knew that this wasn't going to be my movie, because I'm not there. And also too, during post-production, being the director on the film, you are given the right and the privilege to do any additional photography or reshoots. Only you can do that, right? You take the notes from the producers or the person that has final cut authority, and you run with it, and you do all the reshoots and whatnot. He wasn't present to do that. So for him, I mean, just think about it. Like, just make the analogy, right? Like, compare it to, let's say, I don't know, you have kids, right?
Yes.
Let's say your kid comes to you and is like, Dad, I need your help to do a science project for me. and you're like, okay, I'm your father. And my dad did this for me too back in school, so I can relate to this. You as a father would say, okay, I'll make the project for you. No, we're gonna do this, and don't worry about anything, and I'll hand it over to you, right? And if so, you make the whole project, and then you hand it over to your kid, and then the kid goes into their room and messes it all up, or changes the concept and changes everything you did, and then the next day takes it to the class and presents that. That's the way I've always looked at it, is that because he had to step away, whether it was his decision or whatever was behind the scenes, because he had to step away, he wasn't there to be present to see his vision, his project, his work all the way through, So
right. Now we always talk about that, how that word final cut authority. And I've looked into the DGA, so it says that that's the person. There is a person assigned that essentially can say yes or no to things, regardless of what the director wants, because his name is not on that.
Exactly.
So that is what we believe is, in your opinion, that's what the issue was with the theatrical cut, right?
That's what I believe.
Like,
because
I don't think Jack's name is on that, right?
Exactly. So because he isn't the person that was authorized to have the final cut authority,
right?
He had no say in terms of how it was cut. But in normal times, if nothing behind the scenes happened, if he didn't have to step away and he could have been there during post-production, he would have at least been given the opportunity to be present, to be told where they're doing post-production, when, and also to consult, right? To give his suggestions. And the person with final cut authority, whoever it was, will say, hey, maybe we should do this. Maybe we should have Superman fly at this angle, or maybe we should arrange this cut or this sequence a little differently. And then if he was there in normal times, he would have been able to consult and say, maybe not, maybe we should do it this way. So again, that means he's still part of the creative process doing post-production. Right. And in this case, he wasn't for uncontrollable circumstances. So.
I just thought that was kind of interesting how, like I said in my videos, that when I was at SnyderCon and Zack told me that it's not up to him. It's up to Warner Brothers, and but he has to wait pretty much because a lot of those decision makers are slowly leaving. There's not many more there. So I always thought that was kind of a really almost like a backhand saying that he's waiting for somebody else to go to, and what I assume would probably be AT&T to kind of take over that. I don't know.
The way I always interpreted it is that, at the end of the day, at that time, Warner Brothers, they're the distributing company, they're the studio, that's their decision to make. So I'm not sure how much Zack knew about the merger, or how much he knew how much to anticipate AT&T down the road will have more power, I guess, to release, make decisions of what they want to do on their platform. But the way I looked at it is that, all these sequence of events, they all kind of happen like in a beautiful kind of fashion. Everything just came together, especially with new media coming out, being more prevalent in our society now, and there being more streaming platforms and whatnot. That gives companies, Hulu, AT&T, Disney, more opportunity to create their platform and to show whatever they want to show and create whatever original content they want, to create. And so for me, I'm a traditionalist. I love going through movie theaters. I love buying a Coke and popcorn, and that's the way I will always prefer watching a movie. But with the rise of new media, the rise of streaming platforms, it kind of has come at a beautiful time where when you think about the creators and you think about the artists, right, the people behind these movies, they're now given an opportunity to, one, do more work or have more work available to them, and two, get their work out in more platforms and in different kind of avenues. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity to have going forward,
I
So
like when you say that because it pretty much goes to that line in the Hollywood Reporter, and I'm going to read it to you guys.
yeah,
Zack Snyder says this return to that pedigree and to let my singular vision of my movie be realized in this format, in this length, is unprecedented and a brave move.
yeah,
Now a lot of a lot of bad there's interesting opinions from these different pundits saying this is a bad precedence. This is a bad precedence. And I don't know where they're getting that from, but from what I'm reading here, this is a good precedence
for sure,
for creators, right? For
for sure,
directors. I mean,
for sure.
how would this affect the industry in terms of like even like the guild? I mean, like, can you imagine if the Directors Guild they're trying to help these directors get their visions out? This must be something a good thing, right?
This,
I
this
mean,
is in my opinion, this is only my opinion.
yeah.
I think it's a great opportunity. Like I said,
Hmm.
it can lead to more work. It can lead to more residuals.
Hmm.
Definitely, like I said, new media is out there now, right? And so
Right.
though that concept is being now it's a part of the negotiation conversations when it comes
Right.
to directors getting their residuals. So if you have these platforms that can show their their work on their platforms and stream it, and everyone's accessible to it in an easier way, that leads to more, like I said, more opportunity,
Hmm.
more residuals, more of a chance for them just to get it out there.
Right. I mean,
So
that's the concept at the basic level concept. I mean,
that's
you
the
have
basic level. Yeah,
nurses unions, we got screen actor guilds, we have all these unions. They're pretty much we would just call it a company or a
well,
group that
yeah.
tries to protect a certain
Well, at the end of the day,
career, a profession.
they're labor unions, right?
Yeah.
They're
Hmm.
labor organizations, and any
Hmm.
labor organization, the fundamental principle is to protect their workers, to
Right.
be out there for the best interest of their workers, to make sure that their workers, have work, and so that's
Yeah.
why when you think about the guild, you think about they're going out there trying to get legislation so there's more tax credit for film production,
Hmm.
and with more tax credit and rebates, you know, studios are then able to green light more production that equals more work for their
Hmm.
directors. In this case, with these streaming platforms like HBO Max and Zach being able to show his vision, that's just another opportunity for him to get his work out there, and which would then
Hmm.
mean more work and also more residuals. And to be honest, like you look at Army of the Dead, right? And that's
Right.
obviously Netflix, right? And that's a similar situation. Netflix came to him and was like, hey, we're going to let you make the movie you want to make, and we're going to stream it on our platform. Again, like I said, more opportunity, more work. And
Hmm.
if that movie is a hit, Netflix is probably going to come back to Zack Snyder and say, hey, would you want to make another movie for us?
Hmm.
Original movie for us that we can stream. So again, more opportunity, more work. And then for HBO Max, if his Justice League is a success, HBO Max, who now has control to create original content, will probably come to him too and say, hey, would you want to direct this movie for us going into the future?
Right.
Um, and so that's why for me, like when you point out that quote about unprecedented times,
Hmm.
people taking a negative turn to it. When I read that, or when I hear that, I look at it as people just not being able to kind of separate themselves from what they're used to, because no matter what, new media, streaming services, it's all new to us. Like just last year, we didn't have Disney Plus, right?
Right. Right.
Just a
That's
few
true.
months ago, we never had HBO Max. So all these new platforms, they're new to us as consumers, right? As buyers, right? As
Hmm.
moviegoers, people that want to watch television shows and whatnot. It's new to us, a new concept to us too.
Hmm.
So for me, I look at it as a frontier for possibilities going forward. The people that kind of have the negative spin on it, I look at it as they're holding on to what they believe is right. And I'm not saying that they're wrong, but they're
Hmm.
holding too hard onto what they believe is right. And they're not looking at it in terms of the opportunity that it presents to them as a fan and as a consumer.
Right. Right.
So
And as a creator, I mean, just
As a
being
creator,
a
yeah,
creator, just to know that, oh, I can work for this certain company like Netflix, and they won't alter my project. They won't alter
exactly.
my vision. They're
Yeah,
appreciative of what we get. Yeah.
and the other component too, when I hear that quote or when I read it, the other component of why I believe Zach also believes unprecedented, it's because he's also looking at it from the fan perspective. How the fan, like you and also Film Junkie and everyone, leading the charge on all this, and the fans is coming together, mobilizing, asking for a cut or a version of a movie that they wanted to see.
Right.
That's also, in a sense, something that isn't really that done a lot in Hollywood, and I think that's also a missing component when it comes to the entertainment industry. It's
Yeah.
studio, it's directors, it's the artists, it's the creators, but it's also the fans, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, like my girlfriend, she doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
she's not really that much into. She loves watching movies, but she's not
Mm-hmm.
into the industry and reading about it and keeping up to date with it. But when I talked to her about this and we had a discussion about it, her question was, well, since when has it never been for the fans? Why in this case are the fans, I guess, looked at as the villains or the bad people or people that were, begging or harassing for something that they wanted to see. In my opinion, it was just
Right.
fans using a tool to mobilize, to get their opinion out there, to get their wants and their wishes, and it was granted. And that in itself is not seen that often in Hollywood. So when Zach said that quote, I also believe he was talking about this opportunity for him to get more work, but also to do more work and provide more content for his fans.
Right. Right.
Which
And
is
I
also
like how you say that. Like, I always try to get the distinction, because when they say the fan, it's for the fans. It is for the fans, but in this case, it's the Snyder. Fans wanted to make sure that Snyder got to make the movie that he wanted to make. It's not like we're Star Wars fans saying, "Well, I didn't like that. I want you to change that movie so that that person died or that person didn't die."
Or Game of Thrones,
Right.
when they petitioned for that, right? The
Right,
final
that's
season.
right. Because they
Yeah,
got to make the one. So for the Snyder cut, it's like we're fans who want to make sure that Snyder gets to make what he wants to make, which is a different
exactly.
distinction between the other
Exactly.
the bigger fans. Yeah.
And I think, aside from me being a Snyder fan and a DC fan, I think knowing the background of how director's cuts work and how
Mm-hmm.
post-production and the creation, and before that the assembly, the editor's assembly, and then after how the director's cut is created, knowing that knowledge, for me, that captivated me more to be like, hey, this is not just some pipe dream wish that fans are just fabricating in their minds and saying, we want this, we want this, we want this, do it this way for us. It was more of a cry, because, and I was captivated by it because I knew that Zach is allotted all these rights to create his director's cut. So I knew that out there was this alternative cut that existed, that probably existed. And we were asking for that. We were asking for an alternate version of a film that we wanted to see, but we weren't giving our wish lists. We weren't saying that like, oh, and then we want so and so to die, or the villain to be this, or we want the villain to be Brainiac instead of Steppenwolf. Like we weren't saying that kind of stuff.
Right.
So,
So I mean, you're right. It's totally different. What also intrigues me by is this new Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's not Justice League, the director's cut.
yeah.
In your opinion, is that something? Is it essentially the same movie, or is it like they have to actually create a new project?
Well, in my opinion, I think
Yeah.
the best way to kind of, and again, there's this old belief in Hollywood that no one really fucking knows what's going on, right? Unless you are at the table and you know what decisions are being made, and you're behind the scenes, you're in the room, right?
Right.
So
We're speculating.
again, yeah. So everyone's opinion, whether you're a blogger, a fan, a casual fan, an amateur YouTuber, whatever, it's your opinion, right? And so for me, I've always believed that the best way to gather a close enough too accurate opinion on a situation. It's just to look at the common sense narrative behind all of this, right? So you have Zack Snyder's movie, Justice League movie, coming out in 2021, right? We don't know the date, right? It can be 1 year from now. It can be, I hope, it'd be great if it happened January 1st.
January 1st, yeah.
2021, right? Exactly. That would be amazing, right?
Yes.
Just a few months off. So we don't know, but we know that it's going to happen sometime next year.
Right.
So the common sense approach to look at it is they're not going to be able to shoot a whole new movie and then do all the post-production on it and get it out in time for next year. So I think that's out of the question, right? So the way you look at it is, you know that they are working off of something that exists, right? There's something that exists that if you are following the notion of a director's cut and the rights that are allotted to him, 10 weeks to prepare his cut. So you know that something exists from beginning to end. In between, there might be missing scenes, there might be untouched scenes, there might be some visual effects missing. Soundtrack is obviously not there, the score. And again, these are all in the basic agreement that during the creation of the director's cut, directors are given the right to have the permission from the studio to give them temporary effects, or to give them music from their library that they can just put in there as a placeholder, right? So they can still kind of have a feel for the movie, and also when they screen their director's cut to the studio and the person with final cut authority. So all that exists, right? So there is a concrete beginning to end cut that I believe exists for Zack. And obviously he showed us that picture of the film canisters and saying it exists, right? So something exists, but in it, there are things that are missing, that are incomplete, that I believe they now have to stitch together and finish. And then you also have the notion of additional photography, right, that he teased. So he probably wants to then also shoot more, if he's able to then, stitch it up a little bit better, or in a different way that he had it further envisioned. So again, just look at the common sense, know that there's a skeleton there, that's why for me, I believe it's so crazy, the notion that this argument of, oh, it exists, it doesn't exist, is still here today after the announcement, because you just got to look at the basic way to make film and movies. If nothing exists and he's starting from scratch, in my opinion, there's no way it can come out by 2021, right? Obviously they have a skeleton, they have a cut that he's working off of, and then he's going to stitch together and make it better and make it more complete, and then finally let us see it. So
that's interesting. Yeah, I always get in those weird conversations, especially where you have those Twitter fights between Jay Oliva and Robert Meyer Burnett and Mark Hughes. It's kind of ridiculous. It's almost to a point where we're just redefining what it exists mean. Like it exists meaning it's totally finished, or it exists meaning it's not totally finished. But the concept that it's there, but it does not. It's And
if you think about it too, like the whole argument right now about like people saying like, oh, there's not going to be any additional photography, but then people say, oh no, but Zack Snyder said in his prize that there's additional photography, right? If nothing existed right now, and the pundits out there screaming, no additional photography is allowed. If there's nothing that exists now, how is there not going to be any additional photography? Because obviously they have to shoot something. If something doesn't exist, then they're going to have to shoot something for there to be
a existence. Right.
So I always saw like the argument that some of these people, try to present. They just get it so mixed up. They're kind of just going round and round in circles, but at the bare minimum of it, I just think they're going round and round in circles because they don't understand fully the concept of it, and
either that or they just don't want to give in to that. They want to circle around the idea until they're right. I guess there's like, well, my initial thoughts were right because this and this. Which is very mute and doesn't really point. I wanted to go to this Bleeding Cool article, and this is just today actually. Warner Media chairman and HBO Max head Bob Greenblatt He talked about how it's going to probably take a little bit more than 30 million, things like that, and how it's complex. But I was also intrigued by this little quote here. It says, well, we had to go to the unions and get certain things clear with them about what we were doing. He continued, is the Snyder Cut a new movie or is it recut? There's a lot of complexity that the fan community doesn't know about. I thought that was interesting, because it gives me, because it sounds like they went from, is it just a director's cut, or are we taking another, like you said, the reels, and then changing it? But if they changing or rebrand it, does the existing, documentation or the existing information for that would have to be changed, or in your opinion, they'd have to make a set of a new document, like this is a new project, we're going to have to assign a new director and all that?
Yeah, to go off of that quote that you just showed me about what he said about having to go back to unions to clear things up and see what they can do. Again, like I said, there's a whole technical side to this. There's a whole technical side to how movies are made.
It's not that easy.
It's not that easy, and at the end of the day, movies are made by workers, right? These directors, these content creators, they are workers, right? And a lot of them are middle class workers that go from project to project to allow them to get the income to have a family and so forth.
Absolutely.
And because of that, at the bare bones of making a movie, you have these workers, whether you're a director, an actor, a producer. Also, that's why producers have guilds as well. So there is that sense that, hey, if we're going to do this, we have to know what we're allowed to do, who we can do it with. If actors come back for additional photography, they have to clear all the boxes in terms of, can we bring, what actors can we bring back, in what capacity can we bring them back in, stuff like that. And also too, it comes down to, if Zach's working on this, understanding what his rights are,
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if they are, let's say, for example, there's no additional photography, which I believe there's going to be, but if there isn't any additional photography, and Zach is only working on post-production, so VFX, scoring, and stitching it together in the way that he believes it flows with his narrative for the story. If that's only the case, then another change has to come down to the fact that on his previous version for the theatrical cut, he didn't have final cut authority. So it could be now figuring out with the unions, okay, how much power does Zach have when it comes to this, and making sure that all the documents are in order, signed for, accommodated for. So the studio and AT&T and HBO Max and Zack Snyder and all the actors can move forward in a legal way where everyone's work is protected. So I look at that as that's just another step that needs to be done going forward for whatever they decide to do.
Right. I can imagine. I mean, whether this happened before or after, but I think he said that there was already talks back in fall of last year, which was during the time November, where we kind of had it trending, and it seemed to have done quite well then in order to get their attention about that. But I could imagine after that, the talks were, well, how do we get this thing going? How do we get this thing across? And going back to Toby Emmerich to say, well, how do we get this going? But according to the Hollywood Reporter, Toby actually is the one that reached out to Zach. So
I mean, like, for example, like a lot of things that people don't. So something that a lot of people don't know is that a director has a right, and there's actually this thing called, they call it the Bill of Creative Rights, right? It's all these different rights that they're entitled and protected to. And one of the rights, and one of the things that the guild does to protect when it comes to protecting these creative rights is, one is the director is allowed to pick who their first assistant director is going to be, for example, right? The director picks that person. The studio wouldn't tell Zack Snyder, we want so-and-so to be your first assistant director. The director has that right to pick that person. So it could be something as simple as that, checking that box, like I said, that if there is going to be additional photography, that Zack was given that right to say, I want this person to be my first assistant director, and bring that person back, right? Just things like that. There's so much that has to be, and it goes back to what you mentioned before, just being unprecedented, right? This is something that, so in my opinion, because there's so many working or moving parts to this, in my opinion, I don't believe this is 100% just his director's cut that he had sitting away for all these years. It's going to be some of that, and it's going to be something completely new and fresh, and in my opinion, liberating for Zack to be able to, hey, like before I had the chains on, where even if I wanted to make Superman's suit black, for example, right? He can do that now with that kind of liberating freedom to say that was my creative choice, So, but before all that can be done, there's so many boxes that need to be checked to make sure that things can move forward legally and also in a way where everyone's protected.
And I think this is just a special case in terms of Snyder Cut, because there was a history. There was like kind of baggage there, so they had to go through the process. I think for a new project, it'll probably be a lot easier, just to get that thing going without having to go through many hoops.
Yeah, and unfortunately, and this goes back to our conversation about how streaming platforms give more of an opportunity for more versions to be shown of a movie, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, director's cuts are associated with bad movies or movies that are critically panned, right? They're just, like if there's a good movie that comes out, like for example, I don't know, what's a good movie that recently came out that everyone universally loves?
There's a lot.
Can't think of one.
Joker is pretty good. Well, not universally
for example,
loved. Well,
yeah, Joker's a good one, or something. Let's say like Avatar won a lot of awards.
Right, that's right.
Universally loved, right?
Yeah.
Or for the romantic type, Titanic was the one that was universally loved, right? Those movies, you don't always hear that there's a director cut that is going to be released that shows, more of the vision of what the director intended. So it's not always the case, but there's been more. The director's cut has been more so associated with movies that came out and were a little bit more divisive, a little bit more polarizing. Batman vs Superman is a great example, right? I absolutely love Batman vs Superman. I don't agree with all of the cards it pulled, but I absolutely love that movie. But for whatever reason, the theatrical cut fell subpar to the extended director's cut. So in these unprecedented times, and with the Snyder cut being released and kind of leading the charge of being the first one to do this, I look at it as an opportunity, like I said, for more versions. You think about a song, right? From a songwriter or an artist that comes out. That song, even if it's loved or not loved, it gets repurposed, it gets remixed, it gets sampled by other artists to the point where listeners or movie lovers get to hear that's the song that they love, but done in a different way. And that way is better, or that way might be worse, or maybe that remix resonates more with a listener or song lover or music lover in a different way that the original one didn't do. So in my opinion, I look at it kind of like that. If music can be given that opportunity, because music, songwriters, artists, singers, they're creators too, right? If they're given that opportunity to remix and rescore, put out different versions, why not movies, right?
Right.
So, and now with all these platforms coming out, streaming services, how we talked about before, we believe that this is the perfect opportunity and to allow these movies to be retold in different ways, beyond the whole, coming out on this day, see 10 more minutes of Suicide Squad, beyond
edition.
that.
Yeah,
exactly. Beyond that, like, why not the opportunity to get the same movie directed by the same dude or the same girl,
Right.
but told in a different way,
Different
or
way.
shown in a different way, like that.
Right.
What if this happened differently? Like,
right.
Without
any preconceived notions of it have to connecting or anything. This was your vision that you wanted to make it. At the same breath, I think these streaming services don't want to fall into the, well, we only do direct, this
for
is
sure.
a platform for director's cuts, absolutely not. But it is a great precedent for these, like David Ayer. I mean, right now he's kind of just really pushing his Suicide Squad.
Yeah, he sees the opportunity there, and I think I saw a tweet the other day about him saying, if I'm wrong, fix me or correct me, but about him saying that his cut will be easy to complete.
Easy to complete, yes.
And
to complete, yeah.
Yeah, and so you look at him saying that, and then you can use the common sense to be, hey, okay, him getting his director's cut out, if it ever comes out, will be a different kind of beast, different kind of animal to what Zack Snyder is going to be able to do now, right? And it goes back to the whole idea that we believe that for both movies, there is a start to finish director's cut that can tell a whole narrative, a whole story, something that I'm pretty sure Jason Momoa saw when Zack Snyder showed him his director's cut, right?
Yeah.
Beginning to end, Jason Momoa was probably able to watch it and understand the story, the full-fledged story. But maybe 25 minutes in, there's a fight against Steppenwolf or something, or we see Darkseid, and maybe he's not as polished with the VFX and stuff like that. So there's definitely an opportunity when it comes to streaming services to allow directors to get their alternative versions out in different ways. So, and
at the lengths that they wanted to.
Exactly, at the lengths.
You can pause it. You can have chapters if it's going to come out as a miniseries, and because you heard about that. There's only a 2-hour mandate on Justice League because they wanted to secure more theaters.
I heard about that. Yeah,
that kind of thing is really out the window when it comes to streaming services.
Exactly. Yeah, like you said, you can pause it. Like, I mean, I still have not gotten through The Irishman. I think that from Martin Scorsese. Yes. I think that movie's great, but I still haven't got all the way through it because it's a long movie, and I'm able to pause it, go on my phone, go to the restroom. You're absolutely correct with what you just mentioned. It gives the viewers an opportunity to watch movies at their own disposal and at their own leisure. So,
and you're watching streaming services. Nowadays, the content on there is pretty high quality.
It's getting better.
I want to see it's getting a lot better. I mean, I signed up for HBO because the HBO Max is coming out, and I've been watching Westworld, and I'm like, I can't believe this is TV. You got actors like Anthony Hopkins, James. It's like, wow.
Did you ever watch that miniseries Chernobyl that came out last year?
No, but I've heard that it was really good, and that's one of
if you have time with your wife, try somehow to watch that miniseries. I forget what platform it was. I think it was on I think we caught it on HBO.
Is it HBO?
Yeah, HBO.
Then that's perfect.
We subscribe to HBO Go, so we had that. When we stumbled across it, we started watching it. It's a miniseries, but in my opinion, it was the best production of last year. And that's my own opinion. My own subjective opinion. But same thing. Quality, score, the acting was great. So you're absolutely correct. These streaming services, I think, because they're, they want to compete, right? They want to be successful. They want to get as much people to subscribe and get their money. So there is definitely that incentive to make content out there that's appealing and attracts people to it. And that is why my opinion, I've been hearing or seeing people say, oh, well, they're going to release Snyder Cut, Justice League next year, but it's still not going to be good, yada, yada, yada. In my opinion, they have every incentive to make that movie badass, to make it a great movie, because then people will be like, wow, like we want to see more of this kind of stuff. You have our money, keep taking our money,
Yes,
so
I know. They want more of it. Like they don't want to wait for something. So I think this really is a start of something incredibly fascinating. And in my opinion, I don't think it's going to stop at a one. What do
I
you
don't
think
think
it's
it's
going
gonna
to
stop.
stop at one and done? I think Zach may get to
I
continue all the way through.
if it's I mean, there's one thing in Hollywood, right?
Mhm.
It's if your movie is a good movie and it's
Mhm.
critically accepted,
Mhm.
fans adore it, it's a franchise starter, you can make sequels, prequels, or whatever. You
Right.
know, in this industry that there's so much money to be had for these franchises, right?
Right.
So yeah, 100%. If his version comes out next year and it does well and it people love it and they're asking for more, there's why wouldn't you? I mean, Warner Brothers, HBO Max, AT&T, they already recognize after 2 years and a half that there's a market for this version.
Mhm.
So that market, in my opinion, it's still going to exist once this movie is released and people have watched it. You
That's
know,
true. Mhm.
so this guy, like I watched a video the other night. The sky's the limit, like
Sky's
you
the limit.
said.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, and that's a great way to look at it, and that's why like you look back at the history of the director's cut. You know,
Mhm.
and you tie it into what you're saying about this being unprecedented times when it comes to his movie being released and greenlit. When I look at it I know the context and the background of the history, in my opinion, it's very poetic because in the 1960s, the director's cut originated in the 1960s because there was a director, his name was Elliot Silverstein or
Mm.
Silverstein. He moved from New York to Hollywood. He directed an episode for The Twilight Zone. It was called Obsolete Man, I believe. He directed that TV episode, that show. And then when he went to go look at the first rough cut, back then it was called the first rough cut,
Mhm.
he watched it, he was happy with it, but at the very end, the last scene, he was like, no, that's not the way I intended it. How come you changed that? And then the editor was all like, oh, because I wanted to, right?
Oh,
And
what?
so when he contacted the guild back there in the 60s, right,
Yeah.
he found out that the only rights that directors had back then was they were given the right to view the first rough cut and then only give suggestions to the associate producer. Okay,
What?
that was the only right that were given
Wow.
back then. Okay, when it
Wow.
came to after the done principal photography and going
Yes.
into post, so he was like, "No, that's terrible." First of all, what does viewed mean? Does that mean like if you let me see 5 seconds of it, then that classifies as view? And then there was also documentation that he had no clue what associate producer was or did or who that person was on attached to that project back then. So
Mhm.
they actually worked with the guild. And then from there, the guild president back then, I believe his name was George Sidney, I believe. In 1963, after that, after Elliot, voiced his complaints and this need for the industry to change, to allow directors to have more power, more say into their craft, the president back then, Sidney, he commissioned this thing, which was called the I believe it was the Committee on Creative Rights. It commissioned in 1963. It was like an 18-20 member group. And they, like we talked about earlier, they were commissioned to come out with this manifesto, this Bill of Creative Rights, which
Mhm.
they believe that directors should have. And so when they went to the negotiations with the producers back then, at the forefront of it was this need for a director's cut, right? And
Mm.
first, the producers and the negotiators, they balked and they were like, "What is that? We don't know what a director's cut is. Like, like, what are you guys asking for
Wow.
here? There's so much
Wow.
money and time and all this stuff, that this can disrupt for us in the industry." But
Right.
they persisted with negotiations, and by 1964, and also this is very poetic too. In the autumn of 1964,
Oh no.
the guild won.
Wow.
The guild won in their negotiations the right to give directors their right for a director's cut.
Holy
So
cow.
yeah, I mean, when I learned about that a long time ago and thinking about it now,
That
I
gives me
get chicken skin.
chills.
I get chicken skin. I get
Yes.
goosebumps. It's very poetic in that sense, and that win back in 1964 to secure this director's cut, it then catapulted the guild or different guilds to ask for more creative rights for their directors,
Mhm.
And so now you have Zack Snyder's version today in
Yeah.
2020, coming out in 2021, leading
Mhm.
the forefront, in a poetic
Mhm.
way, being this unprecedented project or property that's going to possibly springboard the possibility of directors to get more versions out there, you know, in faster ways and more accessible ways for fans to see different versions. So
Right.
I think it's a beautiful thing. You know, it's
it's like, why is it like this hasn't happened before? Is it because of the IP? That's why it's like these film committees and, you know, people kind of mess around with it a lot more because it's a big IP, a brand IP. While when it comes to like independent film, that's, you know, that you know, pretty much like that. Okay, that's your director's vision.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the saying, you know, more money, more problems, right? So unfortunately, these IPs, there's just so much money to be had at the table. There's so many people with their hands in the cookie jar. You know, you think about toys, you think about not just movies, but the toys, just the merchandise, right? There's just so much money to have, and so these committees, they try their hardest to get it right. You know, but unfortunately, like that saying, if you have too many cooks in the kitchen, it's just never gonna. That's bad too, right? Like, so unfortunately, there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and they all are looking out for their best interests and what they believe that these IPs should be like. And unfortunately, they kind of mostly, you know, most often miss the mark with what they're trying to achieve. But at the same time, they know that these properties, you know, just making an X-Men movie, for example, or a Batman movie, just because it's Batman, just because it's Superman, just because it's X-Men, they know that whether if that movie is subpar or okay, that fans are still going to want more of it because of the IP, because Batman will always attract fans to buy merchandise, to come to the seats. So and because they know that, they know that, hey, if we misfire, we'll just do it again. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that kind of takes away from, you know, directors' ability to, you know, really, you know, put their heart into the vision that, you know, you want to see, they want to see come out there.
There's like a certain preconceived notion for these characters, and that could, you know, potentially. But I like that because this is DC.
Yeah.
And DC, we know they have this term they could use called multiverse.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that, and I think Jim Lee had a lot to do with, you know, in my opinion, I don't know if that's the truth or not, but it's like Jim Lee had a huge idea saying, well, why can't everybody have their cake and eat it too?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because we don't have to stick with one Batman. We don't have to stick with one Joker. You know,
and you know that goes to what that touches on what I believe. I call it the Marvel problem. You know, don't get me wrong. There are some MCU movies that I absolutely love. I think they're entertaining movies, and I'm not part of the group that says, "Oh, if you're DC, you have to be MCU." I like it all. You know. For example, Captain Marvel came out. I watched it on the first night. You know, because I know at least it's entertaining. It's something to do. You know, whether or not I like the movie at the end, I can't control that, but I'm still going to go watch it. When I say the Marvel problem, Marvel created this great concept, in my belief, that they had this 20-part movies strung together in one cohesive narrative, and that was great. That was something that we never saw before, and they achieved that. You know, whether you like Endgame or not, they achieved that 20-movie narrative arc, right? Connecting all these characters. But in doing so, they needed to procure and secure the contracts for all these actors to be able to come back to play the same character, so everyone watching it will be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's the same guy, that's the same dude playing, or that's the same girl playing Black Widow, or that's the same guy playing Iron Man, right? The problem that they ran into now, what I believe, is that they're unable to do that now, right? Because think about it. Robert Downey Jr., his contract is done, right?
Yeah.
He's not coming back for more movies unless, I mean, I'm not sure if they have things in the works, but if he doesn't come back for more movies in that strong and long narrative, they can never have or continue Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man in that narrative again. Right. So they kind of ran themselves into a wall, right? But in doing so, I think, and because this was such a new concept that started in 2012 with Avengers
Oh my
2011.
God. Yes.
So before that, fans, moviegoers, we were never introduced to that concept, and we went along with the ride. And so by creating that Marvel problem that I coined it, viewers, bloggers, fans, whoever, they have kind of created this notion in their mind that this is how we have to do it.
Right.
If there's one Iron Man, it has to be played by one actor. If it's one Captain America, it has to be played by the same dude, the same girl. But if you look at it and how you were saying, the multiverse concept, why can't we have two different Batmans at the same time?
Right.
You know, why can't we have two Supermans at the same time? And why? And not only that, not just saying play by different actors. Why can't we have two Batmans that have different tones?
Right.
You know, or two Supermans that have different tones.
Different
you know,
tones, right.
You know, like stuff like
different
that.
stories, and they don't have
Different
to
stories.
actively connect to each other. They don't have to, the one doesn't have to be the prequel to the other, you know.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, and I think that's, you know, Warner Brothers and AT&T, they kind of seen that a little bit with Matt Reeves' Batman, with now, you know, the Snyder Cut coming out, and again we're going to see Ben Affleck's Batman, and if the possibility they bring him back, or if they do spin-offs off of that, then but we'll still have Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson's Batman, and I believe that's perfectly fine. You know, and again that goes back to what we talked about in the very beginning. There's more opportunity and there's more work, you know, and the fans get more opportunity to see more projects and see these IPs that they love, and be able to accept it and pick which ones they want to be loyal to and they love the most, and ones that they don't. And at the end of the day, you're not running yourself into a problem where eventually, you know, there's going to be a sunset on these actors or this story. You know, you just keep branching them off, you know.
Right. Just like Patty Jenkins recently said, where it's like, think about it as a comic run.
Yeah.
You have a comic run. We do, you know, you read this comic run, you pick up another comic run, and they're not necessarily connected to each other. And I thought that's a great analogy.
That's a great thing. And I think that's, and what I also believe too, because I grew up reading comic books, I think if you start doing that concept in movies where you can just run off with different versions, I think it's going to bring back more comic book readers to want to pick up a comic book and read different versions too. Because in my personal opinion, I believe with the boom of the superhero movies, a lot of audiences are just like, oh no, I'll just watch the movie. I don't have to really follow a comic line, for example. You know, So like you said, sky's the limit. It's so many great opportunities. It's going to catapult us in some kind of direction. And at the end of the day, people are going to like it. They're going to hate it. You know, and we can't control that.
That's true.
And you know that I'm not sure if you saw that Collider article about how they talked about how this Snyder Cut release is bad for the industry or whatnot.
Oh yeah, I did.
Did you read that one? And there was, you know, again, if I'm misquoting, you know, feel free to correct me. But
there was one about something about critical, you know, there's no chance, something along the line. There's no chance for a bias. Critical interference. And I took that line out and I was like, that is wrong.
It is wrong. And I'm not sure if it's from the same article, but I remember reading that Collider article, and then there was a line in it saying that they're basically saying that like, oh, these movies are just tentpole movies to help sell bed sheets and toys, and they're dispensable and just made so they can move on to the next movie, you know? And so I read that and I was like, and I thought about it and I was like, that's why I never understood the hate that these same people who write these articles or do these blogs or make these videos, why they hated Batman versus Superman so much. Because Batman versus Superman, yes, you had these popular IPs, and yes, at the end of the day, that movie did sell still Superman merchandise and Batman toys. But that movie and what Zack was trying to do with that movie was something different than just saying, hey, we're making a superhero movie where you see colors and explosions. I want to tell a grounded story that has a message behind it. You know, he was trying to do something different, and he got panned for that. And then that, you know, that goes back to what we're saying. Now, if they hop on this idea of a multiverse, of hopping onto this idea that there doesn't have to be one definitive or one Batman at a time, you can create these different movies with different tones, different actors, and people can just
pick and choose.
You know, pick and choose. Watch. You know, like imagine going on a streaming, going on HBO Max 5 years from now and searching Batman and then
Oh
you
my
know, up
goodness.
comes the library, and there's
Right.
Matt Reeves trilogy. There's Zack Snyder's, his Snyderverse, or there's
Yeah.
like a different director. You
Right.
know, like that'd be
Yes.
great. And I'll be like, oh, today I'm in the mood for more like popcorn flick, and like this
Heck
action.
yes.
I'll pick that. Or
Yes.
today I
Yes.
want to watch a grounded version that gives me some kind of message on humanity and political stances and whatnot. I'll watch
Right.
that today. That's a
Right.
beautiful thing.
That's a
You
beautiful
know?
thing. That's something, like you said, there's something that, unfortunately Marvel is kind of lacking. But
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
they will, maybe with the whole Disney Plus thing, they can expand on that a
Hey,
little bit more.
I'm
But
I'm
hey,
I'm telling you right now, man. If and when, I believe when Zack Snyder's Justice League is successful and is popular,
mm,
and it draws AT&T and HBO Max and Warner Bros. To do more of that kind of content,
mhm.
100%. Just knowing the industry, Marvel, Disney, they're gonna hop on that same kind of bandwagon, that same train, and
Right.
say we're gonna do it our way, but we also want to kind of do it that way too, because that's making money.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Yeah, and I think I'll end on that line where that Hollywood Reporter line where it kind of sounds like at that last line where it says this return to the pedigree, how it's unprecedented, brave move. I feel like that he is talking for Warner Bros., saying that for other directors, says if you want to see your vision told,
yeah,
this may be the right company. It's went
this may
back to
be,
that company that
yeah,
can provide that for you as well.
for sure, 100%. And at the end of the day, like we all go watch movies because we want to be
Hmm.
entertained, or because we love the
Hmm.
IP, or we love the actors, and we love the directors. So at the
Absolutely.
end of the day, whatever this leads to, wherever this catapults towards, and then going into the future, it's just going to allow us fans to get more of what we adore and what we love. You know, and like I said, like I keep saying, but it's a beautiful thing. It's something where I believe there's just more opportunity to be had. There's more opportunity for the guild to use it as leverage. If they do going forward to argue for more creative rights for their members.
Hmm.
Actors too. So just more opportunity and more great stuff.
Right.
So yeah,
I think this was interesting time for the industry.
it is.
And
Definitely is.
especially with this whole COVID-19, you
Yeah,
got to find other ways to make content, make entertainment.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
right. Well,
But
yeah,
but before I go,
go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you, Chris, for I've been watching your channel well before even the Snyder Cut stuff started. I used to remember going to watch Batman vs Superman and absolutely loving it, but coming out of it and seeing how many people were bashing on it.
Yeah.
And so I was like starving for someone to, because most of my friends and most in my family, my
Mhm.
relatives, they aren't really that big into comics and DC and stuff like that. But so I was starving for someone to agree with my opinion. And I remember just typing in Batman vs Superman is great, and then your video showed up in it. I remember it was like just you on your phone camera, like I think you're like in like a warehouse or
Oh,
something,
I
and
was in the office. Yeah.
yeah, in the office, and then you were just kind of like just saying all the same kind of opinions and things that I agreed with, and I've been watching ever since then. So, but ever
I
since this whole
appreciate it.
Snyder Cut stuff started, I just wanted to say thank you for doing things, in my opinion, in a positive way, in the right way. You might think differently, but I really believe that you and Dave the Film Junkie and those kind of people similar to you guys really led the charge, helping us get our word out and getting this done. So I think you should be really, really proud of that, man.
Oh, wow. Well, I
So
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that's just goes to show, there's a lot of people like us, and we've met at SnyderCon that truly love Zack Snyder's work, truly love Batman v Superman. I mean,
yeah,
how awesome was that when we sat in that theater and everybody was just
yeah,
100%, every single person in that room loves PVS.
yeah. It's a
I love that.
collective energy. I mean,
Yes.
when we stood in line for the signatures, and my girlfriend and I got up there, we told Zach that it was actually my girlfriend's first time watching the Ultimate Edition. So she had
Oh,
seen the
no
theatrical.
way.
So it was her first time watching
Oh, no way.
the Ultimate version. And
Oh,
Zach said to
wow.
us, he was like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "Oh, it's your first time." And he was like, "Yeah, I was wondering if anyone here never saw this before." And she was like, "No, it's my first time, and I absolutely loved it. And I thought it was great." So And I can tell he really appreciated that too. So that was a little bit interesting tidbit. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I mean, and then she's also been on the set for Sucker Punch back.
Oh, that's right.
Filmed it. Yeah,
Yeah.
she was in Canada when we were filming that. So she got to meet Zack there, and she always said that Zack was, just a great guy. Just someone that can be your uncle. And
Yeah.
you being from Hawaii, exactly.
Yeah.
How warm that term of uncle is.
Yes.
So always had great things to say about him. So for me to meet him in person for the first time, that was great for me, and that was awesome. Also to know that you and Dave were sitting in the same theater as me, eating the same food, drinking the same kind of beer. That was a great experience. And I look forward to more of that stuff going forward.
Well, I can't wait. For another SnyderCon too. Let's get back together.
That'd be great.
And celebrate Zack Snyder's Justice League.
yeah, and we'll see what happens going forward. It's
absolutely
so.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, thank you so much Michaela for coming on and chatting with me, and and some great opinions and insight in the industry. And great future for directors and creators everywhere.
Like you said, the sky's the limit, and I'm you and me and everyone else. We're just here along for the ride, and it's going to be a great ride. So,
sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.